Hi everybody, welcome to a special edition of Kopi Chats with Wei Lin. Singapore's general elections are just around the corner and campaigning is in full swing. Last week there was a televised debate between the four leading political parties on TV. So I want to break down everybody's performance in terms of persuasion and communication effectiveness. There will be several teachable moments that I'll point out. First, an introduction to our speakers with a note on their body language. Okay, here's the video.
Economies around the world.
Mute the video as we go along. I'll introduce them in sequence. So the first gentleman on the left in red and white is Dr. Francis Yuan. To his right in red is Dr. Chee Soon Juan. To his right in blue is Dr. James Lim, and in white on the extreme right is Dr. Vivian Balakrishnan. Yes, everybody has a doctorate. They're all highly intelligent people, and here I am critiquing their performance. I don't think any of them are trained, right, have a doctorate in persuasion, so hopefully this will be something a little different. Okay, let's just take a quick look at everybody's body language. Now take a look at this. Here is Dr. Francis Yuan speaking. I've turned off the audio. All we need to do is to look at his body language. He has a very good, calm, confident body language, which is really good. You don't even have to know what he's talking about to observe that he comes across that way, and that is the impression that he will leave on us. Okay, next up, this is Dr. James Lim. He's actually the star of the show. I think this debate made his reputation, and he gave a very strong performance. And you can see also that he has this strong, confident body language and quite expressive. Next up is Dr. Chee Soon Juan. Now he's a political veteran in the opposition, and you can tell if we had to guess who was in the opposition, this would be an easy guess. He has a body language that's he leans in somewhat, and he's a little bit withdrawn. He's not as open and not as expressive. Almost like someone who is, a little more focused narrowly on being aggressive, and not entirely confident of where he is, which is, you would guess that would be an opposition trait, and the language bears that out. The interesting thing is that Dr. Balakrishnan from the ruling People's Action Party, now if you observe his body language, he actually does not look altogether that confident and open. Now, of course, this is only the body language. We're not listening to what they're saying, so you've got to take everything with a pinch of salt. Now, with that being said, yeah, you can observe that he is a little bit, compared to Dr. Francis Yuan and Dr. James Lim, he does lean in a little bit more. He is a little more closed rather than open, but it appears to be his communication style, and generally it's effective. All right, the first moment of note is at the 6-minute 30 mark. Now here it is.
This is a crisis, and this is the crisis of our lifetime. The central focus of our campaign is jobs, jobs, jobs.
I think you must have got that. He said the central focus of our campaign is jobs, jobs, jobs. Now, that is technique. Throughout the debate, Dr. Balakrishnan will not use the technique of this kind of repetition again. He only does it this time in the opening statements to emphasize the issue of jobs, jobs, jobs. So it isn't part of his usual repertoire of speech. He uses it specifically for emphasis, and that's borne out because he only does it one time. And you can see that that's intentional, and that's generally considered an effective technique to use. And if you think back to the times that you hear people say, economy, or anything of the sort, emphasis is a very common technique for persuasion. The next moment is actually, again, Dr. Balakrishnan, because he's well prepared here. He's well prepared, and I'm going to skip ahead quite far, already to minute 35. Here we go.
And let's discuss PMETs. Are you aware that today almost 60% of our workforce are in PMET jobs, one of the largest percentages in the world. Are you aware for every one foreign employment pass holder, there are almost 7 locals holding a PMET job? Are you aware that the number of local PMET...
Okay, I'll pause right there because I think you see what Dr. Balakrishnan is doing. He's asking, are you aware, repeatedly, several times, and each time sharing a nugget of information that is not actually a question. Now, they're all rhetorical. So, you ask a rhetorical question merely for effect. It doesn't matter what the opponent actually responds with. You just want to get your word out that these are the facts that you want your audience to be aware of. So even though he's addressing Francis Yuan, he's actually speaking to us, the viewer. So again, that's a very common, very effective messaging tactic. Because in a debate, what often happens is that you're not trying to persuade the person you are debating. You're often trying to persuade the people listening, the people standing around, the people listening in. And that's exactly what's going on here. So this is par for the course, but effective. And if I recall, he's the only one who does this. So, showing his pedigree in the political arena. Okay, let's see. Now, the next highlight is the first one, not from Dr. Balakrishnan, the first for anybody else. And here is the first notable moment for new star Dr. James Lim. So here we are.
True. Now, what is true, though, is that it does entail a set of trade-offs. Yes. And I cannot emphasize this enough. I think where we fundamentally differ is where we think those trade-offs actually should occur. Now, the PAP would tend to side on the side of capital. We think, in fact, that for every dollar of national income, Singaporean workers already receive an insufficient amount, 42 cents. Compare that to 55 cents in Japan, and much higher in other high-income countries. And we think that a rebalance of that kind of share of labor income is ultimately necessary.
Very good.
Okay, so you can see there that was Dr. James Lim talking about the share of income that goes towards workers and capital. Now, if you're not trained in economics, it is easy to go blank when you hear Dr. Lim sharing about this. And fortunately, I have an undergrad degree in economics. And so I know what he means, but he doesn't really explain, right, to anybody else without a doctorate. And listening on the internet, it might come across as a little befuddling. So, is that the best technique? I actually don't think so. I think that he could have phrased it a little better and simplify the message. So, here, let me give an example. I actually wrote something down. For every dollar that Singapore earns, 42 cents goes to workers. In Japan, 55 cents of every dollar goes to Japanese workers. We think that Singaporean workers are our greatest resource, and they have to be paid in a way that reflects this truth. So that's my suggested way to phrase the topic. And why I think that it's better is that I think that it puts the contrast more strongly. There is a contrast here that Dr. Lim is attempting to highlight. That is, there's an accepted truth in Singapore that workers are our greatest resource because Singapore has no natural resources, so the people are the most valuable thing. And so that is an accepted truth. Now, he wants to contrast that with the fact that, out of the national income, 42 cents of every dollar goes to Singaporean workers, which is lower than what they do in Japan at 55 cents per dollar. It is a huge, a very large discrepancy. So he could make that case, but I think he didn't actually reiterate the accepted truth that people all know in Singapore, that workers are the most valuable resource. So why are we being, paid less? So I think that he could have mentioned that and made the highlight more effective. Now, I'm not a politician myself, but I'm just interested in messaging. So everybody who's telling me like, okay, Wei Lin, you don't know what you're talking about, this is just my opinion. And if you disagree with it, that's all right. Leave a comment. State your reasons. But I think it's very nice to all of us to stretch our limits, push the boundaries, and try to learn something new. Okay, here we go. Let's move along. Here's a funny moment, okay? For bearing with me for this so long, let me just share with you what I consider a very amusing moment.
Now, because now the two of
Just take a look at this. This is gotta be the funniest moment in the whole video, where Dr. Chi has this mischievous grin, just waiting for Dr. Balakrishnan's reply. And Dr. Balakrishnan, you can see the moment when he notices Dr. Chi's grin. His expression changes dramatically, instantaneously when he notices it, and you're like, I better get serious. So that was amusing, but it is also the prelude to the sole moment of genuine fireworks, which happens from the 48th minute. And here we go. Let's just take a quick listen, okay?
Unemployment in Singapore going up, and all this happening before COVID outbreak took place, right? And then you have, on top of that, foreign PMETs coming up as pass holders, employment pass holders continuing to rise. And over and above all this, Mr. Heng Swee Keat then comes up and tells in an interview, toys with the idea of bringing our population up to 10 million. Singaporeans are deadly worried about this proposal. Now, will you categorically tell Singaporeans right now that your party has no intention of raising our population to 10 million by continuing to bring in foreigners, especially foreign PMETs, into Singapore to compete with our PMETs for jobs?
your right around Dr. Balakrishnan.
Okay, I've just paused it right there for a moment to explain what Dr. Chi was doing. Okay, first of all, he asserts that the Deputy Prime Minister Heng Swee Keat talked through the idea of increasing Singapore's population up to 10 million with higher immigration levels. For those who are unfamiliar, Singapore has a long history of welcoming foreigners to contribute to our economy, to live and to settle. Now, over the past decade or so, however, this has changed dramatically. There are now laws favoring citizens, saying that jobs must be offered to citizens first, as well as lots and lots of training programs for citizens to train up for jobs that they want. So, Chi Soon Juan, Dr. Chi, he did not offer a direct quote of what was said, but he sort of vaguely suggested that the government wants to import more foreigners. Now, this vague suggestion is not taken well at all. Dr. Chi asked, will the government categorically deny that it wants to increase the population to 10 million by importing foreigners? Now, this technique is actually really good. I want to say that before I move on. It's called thinking past the sale. So, here's an example. If I ask my friend Jimmy, do you still beat your wife? No matter what he answers, it will make him look bad. Take a moment and think about that. There's no answer that will be favorable to Jimmy, whatever he says. If he says no, then anyone could follow up and wonder, oh, so you've stopped beating your wife? Of course he would protest, like, I never did. But that the fact that your brain just has to stop and process it a little bit more just gives it that much more time time, it gives that much more time spent processing the question in your brain, and just invites misunderstanding. If he denies it even in the wrong way, with the wrong facial expression that we don't like, we also would judge him for that. So this is what we call a classic gotcha question. Now, I have another example. It can also be used by car salesmen. Do you prefer the red model with leather seats or black with the fabric seats? By getting me to imagine the trade-offs, I am forced to imagine that I have already decided to buy a car, which may not be the case at all. I may have not have decided to buy a car at all, and if I have still decided, do I want to buy a car, and someone asks me, so do you prefer the red one with the leather seats? Well, my brain goes to thinking about it, and it puts me in that position, imagining it, and that's not where I want to be. So, understandably, Dr. Balakrishnan takes, exception to that, and he gives his rebuttal here at 49.
Indulge in falsehoods. The
Mind you, it was Mr. Heng Swee Keat that came up with the idea of 10 million population.
Give him his minute and a half.
That's a cheap shot, Dr. Chi.
I'll cite you the interview.
That's a cheap
that Mr.
shot.
Heng actually.
Let me state for the record, we will never have 10 million. We won't even have 6.9 million. What the government doesn't have a target for the population. What we want is a Singapore core that is demographically stable.
Yes, and that is sufficient. That is an exemplary rebuttal. And I think Dr. Balakrishnan knows that. He has to sort of contain his smile a little bit because he had prepared for this, he expected this. Dr. Chi has been a thorn in the side of the government in the past and today as well. And so this was fully expected. Now, we don't even have to get into the specifics of whether it's true, what is true, because, as I said before, the assertion just invites misunderstanding. We don't even know did the government say this? What was exactly said? Who said it? When was it? What was context? None of that even matters. Actually, Dr. Balakrishnan just swept all that away with the perfect response. So his response began, the government does not have a 10 million population target. What is it? Oh, Singapore will never have 10 million. We'll never even have 6.9 million. Right? And he goes on to say, what we want, as the Singapore government is this. So he has done what we call a high ground maneuver. Rather than engage in the weeds, in the details of what was said, who said it, and when, and what are the parameters involved, is it Singaporeans or foreigners? None of that matters. None of that matters because we will never have 10 million. That's what he said. And if you accept that, if you listen to that, and it comes across, and it's credible, then, I find it credible, then the discussion is instantly over. Now, this has been used effectively elsewhere, and I have the perfect example to clarify it further. Okay, let's see. Now, when the iPhone 4 was launched, users found to their horror that holding the phone the wrong way would cause the phone signal to drop. The issue became so severe that Apple had to call a press conference to address Antenna Gate. So, legendary Apple CEO Steve Jobs said at the event, all smartphones have problems. And with that simple phrase, he took the conversation to a higher plane, away from the nitty-gritty specifics, just like Dr. Balakrishnan did, and swept away all the comparisons to direct competitors. None of that mattered to the iPhone 4 anymore. So, of course, Steve Jobs also subsequently went on to offer a software fix and free phone bumpers or phone cases to customers who wanted it, and that was an excellent move. And as we all know, the issue died out because we don't remember it anymore, or barely. Okay, now in both cases, the statements, the high ground statements are so inarguable that the debate stops cold. There's no need to debate any further because the conversation has been taken to a place where there's no disagreement. Everybody, even people who oppose Dr. Balakrishnan, would say, yeah, Singapore will never have 10 million. We don't want it. And so ever since everybody agrees, there's no longer a need to debate. And that was exemplary. However, the true highlight of this video actually is this final piece that I'm about to show you. And this might be the debate that makes Dr. James Lim's political career. He's new to the field, but it looks like he might be around to stay for a long time. So I'll take you to that highlight. It is here when the candidates are giving their closing statements.
For why one end campaign. Thank you.
Dr. Lim, your wrap up, a minute and a half starts now.
Thank you. So I enjoyed the debate actually, and I think this is exactly why debates about ideas for how Singapore should progress should occur. And I think it's also clear from this debate that the PAP does not have a monopoly on the best ideas on how we should bring the society forward. Now, the PAP has argued that this election is really about giving them a mandate to bring the country out of this crisis. And they need this mandate in order to do so. Now, the truth is, the PAP, in all likelihood, will have this mandate by the end of this election. And I think that what we are trying to deny the PAP isn't a mandate. What we're trying to deny them is a blank check. And that is what I think this election truly is about, so that we can actually have this kind of debates, not just in a constrained form over a table, but actually in the forum which was designed for this, which is Parliament. So if you believe, and I call on voters, if you believe in having all voices heard, if you believe that we succeed only when we have sound and rational debate about what matters, if you believe in the essence of a democratic modern society for the 21st century, then we ask that you make your vote count and that you will vote for the Workers' Party.
Thank you, Dr. Lim.
You can see that Dr. Lim is very happy about delivering his closing statement. He must have practiced it a great deal. Now let me break it down for why it's so effective. Okay. Now let's rewind a little bit so we can go through this, and I will pause at each point where I have an explanation to give the clarification, the explanation.
That this election,
okay, but further back.
Ideas for how Singapore should progress should occur. And I think it's also clear from this debate that the PAP does not have a monopoly on the best ideas on how we should bring the society.
So Dr. Lim does here, he opens with some statements that you can agree with, that this is a good idea, we should have these open debates, and that the PAP does not have a monopoly on these kind of debates. And these are statements intended to pace us as a listener. So this is a technique called pacing and leading. So first, I'll say a few things that everybody can agree with. And then at the end, I will say something that I want people to agree with. And it's a very common tactic. You may hear it elsewhere. I don't have examples for you right now, unfortunately, but just observe as we go along. All right? So right now, he's paced you.
Forward. Now, the PAP has argued that this election is really about giving them a mandate to bring the country out of this crisis. And they need this mandate in order to do so. Now,
still pacing us with simple statements that are inarguable.
The truth is, the PAP, in all likelihood, will have this mandate by the end of this election. And I think...
You may have heard a little bit of chuckling in the background. So what he did here is masterful. It's called sharing a disarmingly frank statement. So if I share an embarrassing secret about myself, and you will observe this a lot in TED Talks, for instance. Speakers go on a stage, they talk about a topic that they enjoy very much, that they're experts in, and they'll share something a little embarrassing, something a little unknown about themselves that the audience can empathize with, they can relate to as human beings. and maybe it makes them feel embarrassed on the speaker's behalf, and as a result, they feel privy to a secret. You've just built a rapport that way. So that's exactly what's being done.
I think that what we are trying to deny the PAP isn't a mandate. What we're trying to deny them is a blank check. And
boom. And that exactly is the climax of Dr. Lim's speech. And he delivered it with aplomb. So, very well done there. Pace us and pace us and pace us. And then later on, he shared a disarmingly frank opinion that, even sure you heard some chuckles from the audience because they felt the same way. And then he delivered his coup de grace. Say, we want to deny him a blank check. And everybody recognizes it. They may feel pretty much the same way because it's something that's kind of inarguable. But it is now turning a little bit more serious, and he's going in the direction of saying, this is serious, and maybe you should consider voting for me to make sure that we can prevent this uncomfortable reality from materializing. Okay.
That is what I think this election truly is about, so that we can actually have this kind of debates, not just in a constrained form over a table, but actually in the forum which was designed for this, which is Parliament. So if you believe, and I call on voters, if you believe in having...
And here you will notice the if you believe technique.
All voices heard. If you believe that we succeed only when we have sound and rational debate about what matters, if you believe in the essence of a democratic modern society for the 21st century, then we ask that you make your vote count and that you will vote for the Workers' Party.
Thank you, Dr. Lim.
So, that was again excellent technique. He concludes the statement with repetition, because again, repetition is very effective. We already observed it used by Dr. Balakrishnan when talking about jobs. So here it's used to emphasize these beliefs that we all hold in common. We believe we should have debate in Parliament. If we believe, we need to have checks and balances. All things that we have been led towards. We have been paced very effectively, and then we're again paced with these, repeated statements, or at least repeated formats, right? If you believe this, if you believe this, ending with a call to action, and that's really effective. And you can see that Dr. Lim personally is very satisfied with his delivery. And I think we have a lot to learn. It works not only in the political arena, but anywhere, whether it's at work, in our private, personal lives, anywhere. So that's all I have prepared for all of you today. I hope that you enjoyed this little dissection, and I hope to do more again very soon. Thank you very much for listening. I really enjoyed this, and I hope you did too. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.